my name is Sean Ryan. I am the CEO and founder at Predicting Alpha. Um, it's funny, actually, we went to the same school. I'm a Laurier grad, did the BBA program there. And I think I have a pretty interesting sort of leap into entrepreneurship. When I was in university, I was lucky enough that the friends I was surrounded by were all interested in entrepreneurship. Like this was back when like Ty Lopez was coming out and all this stuff. And we're like, social media marketing agency, we're going to do it. And for all of university, it was like every time we'd hang out, all we talked about was startups, entrepreneurship, business ideas. And, we finished. I actually didn't take any action yet, though. Didn't really start anything. Graduated the program. And I was like, I always knew I wanted to do entrepreneurship, but I need to get more skills first. So I went and I did sales actually as well. I started at Xerox. So I was selling copiers and a little bit of a like document management software. Worked there for 2 years. But the whole time I worked there, all I'm talking about is entrepreneurship. And I was like trying to think of ideas and all this stuff. And then I realized something. I saw some video or like a reel or something. And it basically it talked about identity and how, let's say you're studying to become a doctor. And then when people ask you what you do, you're studying to become a doctor. Well, what happens if you take the MCAT and you fail? Well, your identity changes and you're no longer studying to become a doctor, but you're also not a doctor. What are you now? Mm-hmm. And I realized I was actually that person. I was a wantrepreneur. I wasn't even getting close to my goal because I was stuck in this talking about the future stage. People would be like, good job. And I wasn't taking that like failure risk. Mm-hmm. And literally the day I realized this, the next morning, I actually handed in my 2 weeks. And I obviously thought about it. It wasn't like a crazy move. Mm-hmm. I was like, I have some runway. I have 12 months to figure this out. But if I don't do it now, I'm probably never going to do it. So I took the leap. And 4 weeks later, myself and my co-founder at the time, Jordan, we started Predicting Alpha. And Predicting Alpha started off as just an idea to bring some software to the trading space. Retail traders, meaning, just you and I trading on our own, not working at a firm, have been kind of left in the dust when it comes to the technological advancements, the changes in the way people think about markets and trading. And it kind of makes sense because when you find an edge, you don't really tell people about it, right? It's yours to protect. It's the way you're generating money. And, you look at a Bloomberg terminal, most people who trade retail don't even know what it does. Yet every single professional has one. I thought it just made so much sense. It's like there's a huge gap here. But it wasn't just a data gap. It was actually three pieces. There was the data and technology around it. There was the education, and there was the community. So for example, on a Bloomberg terminal, you can literally send a message to Warren Buffett. They have their own internal emailing system where everyone who has one can message each other and all this stuff. So we decided to create something similar for the retail space where we said, if we provided a all-in-one solution where we provide the data, education, and community needed to understand a product thoroughly, find an edge, build your own strategies, and run your portfolio as if you were actually your own portfolio manager. Our bet was that there were enough passionate traders out there to build a sustainable business model around it. And this was back in January of 2020. We're still running strong to this day. At this point, I just for clarification about the structure of the company, I bought out my business partner back in April of this year. And since then, we've now grown to about 250 traders actively subscribed to the platform. So we offer this as an all-in-one solution for a monthly subscription of $79 US a month. Mm-hmm. And our platform, right now we have about 150 hours of education. We're specialized in the options space, by the way, because that's where our own interests and expertise lie. We have about 150 hours of education. We have thousands of data points that are code-free to use. That was a big thing, right? Coding is, if you work at a firm, you would know that coding is pretty much like knowing how to type. You need to have some background in it. And so we created the code-free solution to analyze the data, and then our community, which is really the backbone. I gotta give a shout out to everyone who's in that community. I've learned so much from them, and it's just been honestly a phenomenal journey so far, building this out.
That's a wild story. I mean, taking the leap from the job, obviously you said you thought about it a bit. Two, giving yourself, a year to figure it out and develop the business is quite a jump, but it looks like it's worked out pretty well. But what's interesting is that like trading, as you said, like typically, if you look at the like knowledge curve of trading, it's like you start off, you're like, I'm going to be a day trader. I'm going to make millions. Nobody knows this. And then you learn a bit about it and you're like, the system is rigged. Institutions have, they say a fair is not fair advantage. They're getting data fractions of a second quicker, which is trillions of dollars. How will I ever win? This is impossible. So how did you go from, I'm assuming you were trading a bit before, but like what made you go to the idea of doing options trading? Was it initially when you were in a business initially, was it more focused on just like general knowledge, or how'd you go from being a sales professional to developing a finance based business that obviously
Mhm.
is a challenge, but obviously is also like very, it seems at least like not out of scope, but like a very technical and like daunting thing.
100%. So I guess I'll give you my like sort of like trading story because it builds into that.
Mhm,
I started not really trading, but investing. I was like, okay, I understand compound interest, averaging into ETFs.
mhm,
That's the game. Let's start now. If I
mhm,
start now, looking good at retirement or even
mhm.
hopefully a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Then I'm sure you remember when this happened too. Then the whole when Justin Trudeau got elected for the first
Mhm,
time and he said he's going to legalize cannabis, that industry just exploded. Right, all
mhm,
these companies, ACB, Canopy Growth,
mhm,
all these companies just started popping off, and I decided to take a bit of a gamble on it. Right, I believed in that. This is going to be a big industry. It's going to be like alcohol and all this stuff.
mhm,
So I bought some stocks in Aurora Cannabis, and I made probably 200, 300% in a 1 month period. And I sat there and I thought about it and I was like, I just made more in 1 month
mhm,
than I would have made in 7 years doing my original idea.
mhm,
Let's put more money in. And then I started to notice, well, ACB seems to trend in this range. Okay, let's try trading it. And then I started learning about technical analysis and all these things. And I found some communities where I was like, man, I want to be like these people. And then you fast forward a year and I'm down 50%. It's the way it went. And at that point, I actually pretty much put the brakes on things. I was like,
mhm,
this is too much. This is crazy.
mhm,
My co-founder Jordan didn't stop. He took things so seriously. He's like, I need this. I want to do this for the rest of my life. He actually exited to continue trading full time. He wanted to focus
mhm,
more on the actual just trading himself.
mhm,
Um, and he gave me a call one day, and he said, "Hey, I'm sitting at this cafe downtown, and there's someone there who we knew in common, and we knew that this
mhm,
person ran like a huge hedge fund." And he asked me like, "Hey, like, is this the right person?" I said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." He's like, "Okay, I'm gonna go talk to him about trading." He went up to him and talked to him, and he gave me a call after, and he's like, he was angry. Like, what happened in that call in that conversation?
mhm,
He said, I told him what I was doing. I had just done what's it's called the CMT. It's like a certified market technician. It's basically a
mhm,
designation for technical analysis. And the person looked at him and went, I don't even know what that is. And Jordan's like, what do you mean? And the story is Jordan told him about it, and he went, nobody's doing this in the professional space.
mhm.
If you actually want to be a trader, you need to go learn about quantitative trading. At this time, we're like, what? What do you mean? We see where you enter the market, man. Like, what do you mean I need this? But that sort of led to like a down a rabbit hole. That first conversation led
Mhm,
down a rabbit hole where you just start seeing other people mention the word quantitative in some way, shape, or form. And you start to see like, oh, here's this person, let's say, like Ewan Sinclair was one that we
mhm,
we took heavy influence from. Okay, Ewan Sinclair ran a firm called Talton Capital for 20 years, trading volatility in the option space. Undisputable that this guy knows what he's doing. And all he's talking about is these quantitative approaches to pricing assets.
mhm,
And that just led down a path of realizing, wow, the only reason I'm doing what I'm doing right now is because I read it in a book, I see other people doing it, and I've made money doing it before. There's
mhm,
really no other evidence. It's very subjective what I'm doing right now, and I'm hoping that it continues to work. But the reality is, an idea on its own isn't worth a ton. You need to be able to
mhm.
almost like disprove your own idea before you got to
Yeah.
you got to take almost scientific approach to understanding what you're seeing. And that is how we got into like the whole quantitative side of trading. Options as a product, I actually do not care about options versus
Mhm,
stocks versus forex versus futures.
mhm.
It's simply because it's the area where we thought we had the best chance of finding an edge. If I found an edge in futures, I'd be over there right now. Does not matter to me. The cool thing about options is there's a lot of dynamics to them. They're a bit of a
Mhm.
complex product and they're less liquid than the stock market, meaning there's less sophisticated players in general.
Yeah.
Um, and that means opportunity. Right? I don't want to consistently compete against Citadel.
Mhm.
I want an opportunity to compete against some other players who maybe I have a better
Yeah.
shot at being right against.
Mhm.
Um, but that's how it got to options. That's how it got to this like sort of quantitative
Mhm.
approach to things.
It's so interesting because you talk to anyone who's like learning about finance early on, and being a quant is like a hidden superpower, like a hidden job that nobody knows about. So you realize how much money they're making, and you're like, you're making seven figures at like 27
You're
or
like,
20. Like,
why?
what do you do? And then and you're talking they're like, oh, I manage about $1 trillion like a week, or like oh I'm doing billions of dollars a day based on an algo I made, and you're like, and then you go down the rabbit hole like these systems, these robots are beating us.
Right?
How are we ever going to win? So
That's
it's
when you get
like
to
you
that
said it.
second stage where you're like, it's
Yeah,
rigged.
it's such an interesting thing. Like, I think I had the very similar thing with finance where I'm like, what do you mean there's a whole, like, I thought it was just a guy you see on TV, like, or in the movies, like on the stock floor, just making guesses. And some guys are good at guessing and some guys
Yeah,
aren't. But there's so, like you said, so much more
yeah,
sophistication behind the scenes than there actually is.
yeah. I
And I
guess
like how you
I'll
said you,
say two
Mhm,
quick things about it quickly before we jump to the next thing here, because
mhm,
I want to clarify what I mean by quant. So obviously
mhm,
there's a side of it which is the algorithmic side.
mhm.
But if you think about what these algos are doing for the most part, it's actually the execution. It's the
Yeah.
speed to market. And that's a very particular game, right? As a retail trader, we probably shouldn't be like trading the 1 minute chart trying to get in and out quick because we're not an algo. Like they will beat us to that fill every time. But there's a whole other side to it, which is really no more than simple statistics. The
Mhm,
idea of quantitative analysis is simply putting data to ideas to see if they mean anything. It's like, it doesn't need to even be more complicated than that to find something worth trading.
mhm,
And the reason that's the case is because one of the biggest things that I had to sort of understand as a trader was I need to stop playing the game of I'm smarter than everyone else and start playing the game of how can I treat my trading like a business? The market, the way you can make money in a market is by there's reasons people take actions in markets.
mhm,
And for example, an earnings event is coming up. All right. Pension funds hold, let's say Apple's coming up and a pension fund
mhm,
holds $1 billion of Apple. Well, if Apple goes down 10% on earnings, that's going to be really bad for their investors, right? And there's a lot of like money and lives almost on the line with
mhm,
this type of stuff. So what they're going to do is they're going to go out and buy a put, right? They're going
mhm,
to go buy a hedge. Do they care if that put is $4 or $5? Probably not, because what they care about is the downside protection, the worst case scenario. Now, what that does is it creates opportunity for someone like me to come in and say, well, what is this put really worth?
mhm,
Should like almost in like pricing insurance, how much should this insurance cost? If I think the fair value is $4, but it's trading for $6, well, I can come in and provide that liquidity. And that's how you start to think, okay, wow, I'm actually in the business of providing liquidity here. And my job is to find out where someone's willing to give up some money. Not that
mhm,
they're like losing per se, because they're getting their hedge. They get what they want. But I'm now in the business of providing a service to the market. And it's resolving these pricing inefficiencies and providing value in certain ways that that mind shift totally changed the way I thought about trading in general and put me on a pretty awesome trajectory.
mhm. Do you think of generating revenue? Was it always going to be a B2C play? Were you looking at trying to work with smaller institutions? Were you looking at being content creator? Like, how did you realize, okay, this we're gonna develop a platform, which also seems very technical. Like,
Mhm.
how'd you get into that space? Because it doesn't seem like you're from my understanding, you're not like a programmer by chance. It's not like you're making platforms in your day job and you're just transitioning over. How'd you get to that idea of really trying to get the average trader and building this platform out and get to revenue?
Yeah, for sure. So the way that it happened was after I left Xerox,
Mhm,
Jordan had approached me. He had built a platform for earnings trading that he was using for himself, and a few friends were using it too.
mhm,
And he said, do you think people would pay for this software? And he sort of explained to me like what it was used for and all this stuff. And I thought, yeah, I thought they would. The reason that we both were on the same page about targeting retail traders
mhm,
is because there was there's already so many solutions in the professional space. Like you have Bloomberg, you have LiveVol, you have these
mhm,
things that cost something that a firm can afford. Even a family office has solutions that they can afford less than Bloomberg, but there was nothing for the retail trader. The
mhm,
retail trader is still stuck with nothing but the charts and some books.
mhm,
And so our bet was like, we thought about it like a trade. We were
mhm,
like, there's an inefficiency here. If we can resolve this inefficiency, there's a little bit of a philanthropic side of we'll feel good about it, right? But then also we expect to get paid for
mhm,
resolving this inefficiency, right? Bringing something to market that bridges this gap between retail and Wall Street. So that's how we sort of picked our target audience. It was where the need was. Really, that's what it was. And we felt like we could identify with that need quite well because we knew we are them,
mhm.
right? We are our own first customers in a sense. And we felt that we had the expertise to bring something to market. I'm not a programmer by background,
Mhm.
so Jordan built the initial prototypes, and eventually we brought on a developer. Um, but I felt like I could bring to the table the business development side of things primarily,
Yeah.
and then together we were able to develop the education and foster the community. Um,
And and you really touched on community, such a big part of it. Did you find, I mean, because it's been around for a few years now, did COVID and like the extreme focus on like crypto, DeFi, people making, you thought 200% in the week was good, like 200% in an hour. Did you find that
yeah.
that helped or hindered in the business in the sense that people were now expecting, hey, if I'm options trading, my buddy here in crypto is making $2 million an hour, it seems.
Mhm.
This is too small of a return. Or were people now open their eyes if there's other ways of trading? How did that affect the community or even
Mhm.
finance, or how it affected your world in general during those very hectic market times?
Yeah, yeah. So I can say two things about that. Even though there was such an insane bull market,
Mhm,
a lot of people were still losing money. A lot of people were still losing money. And I'm not saying that to say that I prey on people who've lost
mhm,
money. It's really just that if you're if you're playing a game that you're supposed to lose in the long run, eventually it happens,
mhm,
right? And unsustainable things are unsustainable for a reason, right? And so number one was actually we kind of missed the boat. It would have been a great time for us to get in because not so much because of just what was happening in the market, but just the attention.
mhm,
So many people got into the trading space, but we were a team of two. We were really just trying to figure it out. We had nothing built yet when that really kicked off, and we were a little late to the party on it, which still kicking myself about it today. But in the end of the day, it still is working out fine.
yeah.
Um, the second thing I would say about it is that's not really our target audience.
Mhm,
The target that is who our target audience was 2 years ago,
mhm,
in the sense of like as an individual, as a customer persona, they usually have a couple years experience. Um, they've already got their wounds, they've licked their scratches,
mhm,
they're back in the game, and they've the the level of experience and product knowledge is higher than someone who's new to the game.
mhm.
Typically, we did
Yeah.
create something for the fresh trader, and sometimes that's great because I'm like, hey, less to unlearn. Good
Mhm.
for you. It's gonna be great.
Yeah.
But typically, it's someone more sophisticated, someone a lot more serious, who's already made the commitment that this is like something they're going to be taking very seriously.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
Interesting. That makes a lot of sense. I think that's one of the challenging things is not only like focusing on a B2C customer segment, but figuring out like which persona do you want? Like, is it the
Hmm.
brand new traders who, I mean, similar to like Formula One during COVID and all these other sports or things like you got massive interest from like brand new newbies into it
Hmm.
versus someone who's a little bit more experienced. And it's interesting to see like that you're finding more success with people, obviously, who have some understanding of like what trading is, have probably traded in the past, and now are looking at I guess you could say like another level, like moving away from like the ETFs and just purely investing, like you said from
Yeah.
before, to a little bit more of now trading, looking to
Mhm.
options, looking for other ways to generate some earnings. But it is interesting because I have many friends who became diehard crypto fiends during this time,
Yeah.
but couldn't tell me like what they were trading or what they were investing in,
Yeah.
and
Or
that's
why
always
they're
this
making money.
why they're making money, and they're like, no, don't worry, it can double forever. I'm like, I don't think you know how the economy works, but that's
Come
a
on,
topic
stocks
for
only go up, right?
it's only going to go up, it's only to the moon. But I
Always.
think it's interesting because I think even
That is
for
my
me, my
analysis.
exactly, no analysis, no knowledge, but I think like you said, like people who've lost a little bit are like the round two are like, okay, I need to learn this. Those are, I
Yeah.
think, growing more and more. And obviously, those are also the people who can understand the value in a product that can
Hmm.
really help them and educate it.
And
T-
interesting.
Mhm,
I think that we as a company are going to enter into a phase over the next year where we'll see a tremendous growth
mhm,
because of this one principle. In markets, money transfers from the
mhm,
the the the, the bad to the good
mhm,
in the
mhm,
sense of trading decision making. Right?
mhm.
Those who make better decisions make more money. Nobody shares the pie. Nobody shares the cake. It all goes to the
Yeah.
people who earn it. Meaning, if 30 million people joined the market in 2020, there's not 30 million right now.
Mhm,
But the ones that are left, if they've survived this long, have learned something and they are still here for a reason,
mhm,
right? And you can see this actually if you just look at like Reddit, for example, and the activity on trading forums on Reddit. Um, it's dropped significantly over the last year, right? We've entered into a bearish market,
mhm,
right? We're spies down 24% this year or whatever. Tech got smoked at one point there.
mhm,
um, Crypto, right? So you're seeing these things where the money is the money's moving, the
mhm.
money's moving, and that means the people left are probably actually a better fit for the product we offer.
That, that makes a lot of sense. And it's, I mean, almost a great time, like you said, for a lot of people now who have, I think, probably never before, except for the early 2000s, maybe when like online training became a thing, how we had such a mass interest in finance, in investing, in trading in general, due to COVID. So I think it's almost like a unprecedented time for a product like this to really make its strides because so many more people are looking into it, where 10 years ago, no, like you might know one person who's trading. And then the rest is like, no, my
Literally.
bank does it for me. My bank has my best interests for me.
Yeah,
Just
you're
trust
like,
it to the bank. So it's for sure different times. Now, obviously, now we're a little bit in a, depending on who you listen to, obviously we're in a little bit of a downturn in the market. Do you
mhm.
find that kind of working people working with your customers or growing the business, is it tied to how the market is doing in the sense of when the market's going up, more people are clicking on the website, or because you're now looking for more experienced traders, or that's where your main market is, does the market volatility not affect the business as much day to day because the people who are clicking and signing up are more interested in more in the long term and a more knowledgeable about the ups and downs of the market?
um, it's a good question. It's tough for me to say
Mhm,
because as a business, so we spent a lot of time focusing on product development.
mhm,
I'll preface this by saying, like, this is my first venture,
mhm,
and I am not claiming to have any answers really.
mhm.
Like, I'm learning as I go, and
Yeah.
I have a few people who are mentoring me that I'm very very
Mhm,
grateful for, and have definitely saved me from a few
mhm,
pitfalls that would have been bad. But I'm still falling into lots of them, and
mhm,
one of those is, you know, it's tough for me to measure that right now because we only really kicked off heavier marketing this year. So I don't have the data to actually
mhm,
look at what was happening in 2020. Like, people were joining
mhm,
then and stuff, but we weren't tracking it. We weren't able to
Mhm.
really measure anything. We weren't asking people joining questions like, why are you joining? Or
Mhm.
what are you most interested in? Now we're doing more of that so we can actually build out these better personas over
Mhm.
time and understand the needs of our customer better.
Mhm.
Um, but in terms of treating your trading like a business and whether it's correlated with the market or
Mhm.
not, it is to a degree, right? Because
Mhm.
imagine there was never car crashes.
Mhm.
Besides the fact the government mandates it, nobody would buy insurance. If there weren't accidents, nobody needs protection.
Mhm.
So when you're, let's say, providing that hedge fund that put, you will get burned sometimes.
Mhm.
And in downturns, the temperature goes up, burns get a little bit worse. But it's
Mhm.
for those reasons that this risk premium that you're able to sort of harvest over time
Mhm.
exists. If
Mhm.
situations like what we're seeing right now never happened, then there would be no money to be made, or it'd be in a different place. It'd be, you
Mhm.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
In this particular example.
Mhm.
So there is some correlation. Options tend to have a correlation with the market as well. It's a
Mhm.
derivative of it. So, um, you sell an option, or it's
Mhm.
like yeah, it's correlated with the market
Mhm.
basically to a degree.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I think, and also because you're pretty early stage, I mean, it's all up. So I think it'll be interesting once you grow. It'll be interesting to see if it's like if there are mirrors, or it could also be inversely because you said like when
Mhm.
things are going down, people are like realizing, hey, I just got lucky before I need to learn. So let me look for other
Mhm.
platforms. Or it could be the other way where things are going up. People are like, how else can I make earnings? So it'll be interesting to see over the years as this business grows, kind of how that correlates. Or also, there could be no correlation. It could just be like, hey, people are here for the long run. Ups and downs are
Yeah,
only transitory. Um,
100%. Like, it's funny. It's almost like you could just change the marketing because we
mhm,
have like so much education, so much data.
mhm,
In the great times, push the data. In the bad
mhm.
times, push the education. You
Yeah,
know.
it's 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 so interesting how you're saying that. Like, it'd be interesting to see it. Yeah, exactly. Like what clicks better during the good times? Do certain parts of the product resonate more? And I think that's one of the things as any
Mhm.
startup and business grows, it's really figuring out like who those customer personas are. And there may be multiple. There may be the people in the bear markets who are more interested in a product like this versus the inverse. So it's for sure going to be
Mhm.
interesting to see as the economy shifts and everything shifts, how your customers interact and really get more
Yeah.
and more signups.
Yeah.
Now,
It's going to
mhm.
be interesting for sure. I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out.
One thing with marketing though, and speaking of Ty Lopez as well, is that a lot of times with these financial courses, tools, a lot of the big ones, I mean, to some extent, is like
You can
heavily
say
on like Andrew
it.
Tate, and all these other ones who are trying to make money quickly. It's
Yeah.
pretty scammy marketing.
Yeah.
Do you find that now, because you're obviously having pretty realistic returns, like realistic marketing education, that and if you talk to your customers, do you find that people are expecting crazy returns and are saying, "Hey, how can I double, triple my money?" Because guy over here saying they could, or because your market is primarily, you said, on the ones who are a little more experienced, that these people are almost the people who got kicked out of the scams, who realized that there was a pyramid scheme over here. Now I'm looking to educate yourself more. Or how have you seen that shift? Because I feel now more than ever, there's a lot of interest in unrealistic returns, or has that not really been as big
Yeah.
of an impact in your customers' minds?
It's probably the toughest part when it comes to our marketing is just we are in such a noisy marketplace,
Mhm.
right? Like I am surrounded by people posting pictures with Lamborghinis and just a number that says 1 million.
Yeah.
Without any context, it's just like, buy it, buy my stuff, you
Yeah.
know? And that is the unfortunate reality of our marketplace.
Mhm.
It's with the rise of the whole laptop lifestyle,
Mhm.
entrepreneurial grind set, mindset type
Mhm.
stuff. It's the allure of this quick money ideal is huge, and it's
Mhm.
especially prevalent in the finance space because make my money work for me.
Mhm.
Like it's pretty clear how it can happen. I would say for our target audience, most of them have gone through something of that nature,
Mhm.
or maybe they haven't necessarily bought into something like that, but they are not falling for it anymore.
Mhm.
And what they actually, so the way that we market right now is through providing the highest quality content available
Mhm,
in terms of the actual thing you learn.
mhm,
So a lot of the times with these like signal services and stuff like that, the term for it is like a black box. It's like something happens behind this
mhm,
curtain. Here's the answer for you.
mhm,
So our thing is the complete opposite of that. It's full transparency. You ask me how something's calculated in the terminal. Here's the
mhm,
formula. It's actually available just in the tooltips. You you have a issue with an idea
mhm,
we're talking about. We will chat about it in public, and I will share with you this, and we can answer your questions and go back and forth.
mhm,
There is no smoke and mirrors at all, and the
mm,
purpose is to actually directly position ourselves opposite of the guru space because we cannot come into this space without addressing it.
mhm.
I tried the more aggressive approach of
Yeah.
like taking them on. I think there's merit to it. It was tough. It's a
Mhm,
tough space to be because he's just showing a screenshot of a
yeah.
huge return, or she's showing a big screenshot. Can't really argue it, and the people who would be watching aren't even our audience.
Mhm,
So it just had to be people who've gone through it. Their BS detectors are very sharp now.
yeah.
So you just got to be very authentic, um, relatable, and give value. And then the ones who are actually our target audience will resonate with it.
Mhm. I think that's one huge takeaway from many founders, and especially what you were just saying, is the fact that you have to be genuine to yourself to grow a business because it takes so much time. It's very hard to fake it for years. Like,
Yeah,
and a lot of times, even with these more scammy things, it's like, not to say those people are scam, but it's like consistency with their personality. If you're flashy, then you can do flashy things, but at the same time, you have to be geared towards your audience. And I
yeah,
mean, as you said, it's so hard to make fake content that you don't believe in. It sounds simple. You're like, oh, I'll just shoot a video or I'll just make this post. It is draining. Um, like you wouldn't believe because you don't believe in it. People can kind of sniff out the bullshit as well. They're like,
mm,
something seems off. It's almost like the uncanny valley, kind of with AI now, where you're like, this something's off with this. I don't know what
yeah,
I can't put my finger on it. And financial advice is almost the same thing, or financial services where it's the same thing. You're like, I
yeah. I
don't
don't know what it
understand
is,
how
but
everyone's a millionaire. Mhm.
eh.
So
Yeah,
obviously, one thing as well, like with creating a business, is this like whole idea of like a work life balance and working crazy hours. How what do you find? What do you define as work life balance, and how do you find some balance in your life?
just go to the gym. Get out of my house for once. Sometimes
Mhm,
go for a walk. You got to build it in. So I'm in year 3 of doing this,
mhm,
and what I actually found happened work life balance. I would almost call it work life separation. So
mhm,
I used to think the idea of like work from home, like this is like pre-COVID. It's like work from
mhm.
home is like the reason I'm doing this. And I was like, oh man, everyone's doing it now. This is lame.
Yeah.
But no, I used to wake up. I would basically be like sleeping where I work,
Mhm,
eating where I work, and it was okay for a bit. But then you
mhm,
realize that for me at least, I
mhm,
realized I was never fully working and I was never fully relaxing. I was
mhm,
always in this like limbo. And what it did was two things. One, it made me unhappy.
mhm,
And two, my business suffered.
mhm,
Because if you're not fully engaged, you're not giving your best, and the quality itself is just going to be so much lower. So, what I did was a couple things. I actually set up a proper workstation for myself. I invested in it. I made it something that uh, I thoroughly enjoy working at. I feel productive when I sit there. And then when I'm not working, I do not sit there. I
mhm,
started signing up for things that get me out of my environment. So I have more changes of environment. I signed up to a gym. I did like dance lessons, right?
mhm,
Like I would go to a pool hall and shoot
mhm,
pool with my buddies a little bit more frequently because as much as it sounds great to work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, and build the fastest, biggest business you possibly can, I'm not Elon Musk. I can't do
mhm,
it. That's not gonna. I can do it for a month, and then I'm gonna be burnt out.
mhm,
It's a marathon, and I had a lull of maybe 6 months where
mhm.
I didn't realize the symptoms were hitting me, and then when I did, I made a really big shift in the way I run my life. I guess.
I th- that is such a great takeaway that you found. I'd say pretty early on within your life and career, because a lot of funny enough, like super successful founders I've spoken to, that's the one thing they say. They're like, early on, you think, hey, this guy's working 125 hours. I need to be working 125 hours a week. Most people also lie about how much they work, truthfully. They're like, yeah, I worked 125 hours. Oh, but I forgot about this, that, and the other thing. But when
But
you
you're
talk to
telling me
these,
about a Netflix show you just watched 3
yeah,
seasons of this week? What?
so it's so I think it's one of those things people like to brag about it, but I mean, if you look at your life at almost like a calculation, it's all about the outputs. If I can do what you can
Yeah.
do in 40 hours, why would I work? Like, why does 80 make it me better
Mhm.
or worse? And I think one thing I found when I was talking, like I said, like very successful people, they all talk about like the power of sleep. Like, you need your sleep. I can't be effective. And then activity, going for walks and working out. And it was the
Mhm.
idea that, like, I always say that's like, learn to rest as aggressively as possible. Like, learn how you can switch it off. And even in university, and we both went to Laurier, was the fact that had some people who had crazy grades but partied so hard.
Yeah.
But what I saw was they would have a switch. Like, I'm in party mode now. I'm going crazy. Wake up at 6 a.m. I am studying for 5 hours. But
Yeah.
there was, and I was notoriously bad at, like, I'm studying, but I'm watching Netflix. So I'm
Yeah.
not fully relaxed, but I'm also not fully learning. And you waste so much time being like, I studied for 24 hours. 20 of them were kind of on the TV or on the, so it's
Yeah.
like you said, learning how to, I like it better, not work life balance, but like separate those two lives so you can really focus on each is
Mm.
so important, especially for, I think, like you said, the long term. Some weeks are crazy, but you can't be burnt out for years to get the results. You're just miserable. And what's the point of this if you're not happy at least some points of the
Yeah,
day?
at least at some points, right? Like,
Mhm.
if you're not like stressing about the existence of your company in 5 years, you should be happy. You know, like
Yeah.
any of those are the only two states that I'm in. But
Mhm.
I would add one thing to it though,
Mhm.
which is that I'm not. I actually I wouldn't go as far as to say like designate 40 hours for working on your business and then chill.
Mhm.
I think it'll be different for everyone, but the way that I sort of approach it is live well enough that I'm excited to work on my business.
Mhm.
You know, whatever that means for you is what it'll mean for you. For me, it means first thing I do every morning is gym. I have this
Mhm.
like habit stack that I follow in the morning that I love.
Mhm.
I designed it specifically to be something I enjoy. Work out every day, you know, everything that
Mhm.
it's like the first 2 hours I'm not working. But then I sit down at my desk, I'm feeling good,
Mhm.
grind out some work, I take a break, I chat with some of my friends, my
Mhm.
team, whatever. And then, I have a thing like, I'll watch Jeopardy at night.
Mhm.
It's like my thing. I love watching Jeopardy. So, and outside of those hours, I am either working directly on the
Mhm.
business or thinking, putting in implicit
Mhm.
hours, thinking about the business, thinking about what to do. So it's definitely more than 40 hours,
Yeah.
but I'm not suffering from it. I'm,
Mhm.
it's probably been similar for about 6 months now,
Mhm.
of this like steady
Mhm.
amount. And I'm just finding that it's enjoyable,
Mhm.
sustainable, and I do push myself sometimes to do a bit more, but you got to find that balance,
Mhm.
right? That like it'll be different for everyone.
I think the one thing you touched on that's important is the fact that, like, when you're relaxing and resting, you shouldn't be worrying. I think what happens to a lot of people is that when they're trying to relax, there's worry. Like, you can
Yeah,
work crazy hours, but you should figure a way of, like, to disconnect. I was talking to one executive at EA Games, and at the time they were a former employee. They said how they calculated work life balance was how energetic they woke up in the morning to get to work. And they
hmm
said when I lost the excitement or hope, that's when I knew something was off. And then there's also studies of, like, they were a parent, so they were fearing was like how many hours are am I at home versus that. And they said one thing kids remember is not if you were home a lot, but it's like how much energy you had when you went to play with your kids or interact with your kids.
Oh,
It's the like they found kids who had a parent that was engaged when they were with their children had better results versus parents who may be home for, like, they worked like 30 hours a week and they're home all the time. But if they're not mentally happy, it made a much more negative impact versus shorter hours, happier time, which which was a study I have to find again. But I remember them talking about that as a parent, and it was interesting, like, to say, like, hey, it's not only about the hours, it's about the moments, and it's similar to business to some extent. But
do you remember every single moment of every day when you were a kid?
no,
Right?
but you
Like
remember the great parts. You remember, like, playing catch or making a snowman,
exactly.
those like memorable bits. Obviously, though, there probably is a limit to, I think you have to see a
Yeah.
child more than 5 minutes a day. But it was one of those things where, like, more doesn't always
Yeah.
mean better, and that's for time for anything. But
100%. Yeah. Yeah. And I find,
mhm,
the way I do that, like for me, I can't hype it up enough. The gym. The
mhm,
gym was just like, even if I go and like I don't have a great workout, it still is like I log out.
mhm,
I'm able to like actually just like not. I actually got to the point where I don't bring my phone with me anymore.
mhm,
I go. It sucks not having music. I'm actually thinking about
mhm.
getting like an MP3 player
Yeah.
just so I can still have music. But like phone's in the locker. Like it's not coming with
Mhm,
me, and it's just been huge.
mhm,
It's been so good. I can't
mhm.
recommend it enough.
Everyone I know who started working out without a phone doesn't regret it and never goes back because you can't really disconnect. Even if
Mhm.
you're like, I'm just using it for music, you're always semi-connected or checking your email. So I think that was one tip I've heard that I need to try more is like, don't bring a phone. Just be in the moment. And with the for a few times I've done it, have been way better results, not only in my workouts, but also like feeling like I actually did
Mhm.
disconnect and wasn't semi-attached. But you know, you've had quite a roller coaster, quite a bit of success as well over the past few years. If people want to follow along, get involved, learn more about predicting alpha, how can they get in touch and kind of learn more about it?
Yeah, for sure. So there's a couple ways.
Mhm,
So number one is probably our YouTube
mhm,
would be the best way to sort of get a glimpse into like what we're kind of trying to do. It's just the channel's just called predictingalpha.com. And our website is predicting alpha, or the channel is predicting
mhm,
alpha. The website's predictingalpha.com. The the actual answer I'll give is we wanted to make this as accessible as possible. And we're still small. So what we do is
mhm,
this. So we have a free trial, right? No obligation. You sign up. If at the end of that free trial you're not happy with what you see or you still have questions, during that free trial, I actually have one-on-one calls with every single person who joins, where we build out a plan for you, all
mhm,
this stuff. And if there's something you're unhappy with, we'll work through it because I genuinely just believe that this is the best solution for someone who's taking trading seriously.
mhm,
And everyone has like a different sort of desire, what they're trying
mhm,
to get out of things. And obviously, we're a small company; we can't tailor it specifically for everyone. But we try to, by making myself readily available and our team doing the same. We try to just do that to the best of our ability, even if it means me giving you my time directly, which is kind of weird in a software company, but whatever. We're small enough to do it, right?
mhm,
Um, and that would be my honest answer is just like take a free trial, go through the education, leave if you don't like it. Like
mhm,
it, I think within the first few videos, you'll know if it's something for you or not. We specifically like structured our platform to have the mindset shift be the first thing. It's
mhm,
like, do you agree with like our sort of like core philosophy of what trading should be? And then if the answer is yes, it's like, okay, now let's learn.
mhm,
Um, so that would be it. And then also just email me. I'm
mhm,
totally available. You can just, it's Sean at predictingalpha.com, SEAN, spelled correctly,
mhm.
but yeah, just Sean at predictingalpha.com. You can reach out to me anytime.